Hey folks, part 3. I've just realised we're only 12 minutes into the actual video. Uh, I spent 20 minutes debunking this guy. This may turn into a bigger series than I thought. Anyway, let's get on with this. Okay.
They say it all happened from the Big Bang, so we need to look at this Big Bang. That's not what the Bible says, by the way. The Bible says in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now, what the evolutionists say, most of the humanists are actually evolutionists as well, it says the humanists regard the universe as self-existing and not created. There's the Humanist Manifesto, 1933. They said the universe is self-existing and not created. Very different from what the Bible says.
Old news is old, Dickie. Once again, I'll say so fucking what. I want to get onto evolution, thank you.
All right. Now here's a general textbook, and it says that 18 to 20 billion years ago, that's an old textbook, by the way. They've changed their mind since then. They now say it's 13.4 billion years ago. There was a big bang, they say, and this bang came from a little tiny thing, smaller than a full stop on this page, and it exploded and caused everything that we see in the universe. That's what they say. It's called the Big Bang. And we'll talk very briefly about this Big Bang because it's a very recent thing. There's a Belgian astronomer called George.
Couple of things here. That textbook is from 1992. It's almost 20 years old, so it's not really relevant in this discussion. Science has made great strides since then, Dick, so it's no surprise that ideas have changed. Quit it, you snaky creatard, you. Also, the Big Bang Theory was thought up by the Catholic priest Monsignor George Lemaitre. You forgot to mention that he was a theist, didn't you?
George Edward Lemaitre, who died in 1966. But what is interesting is that originally, according to Isaac Asimov, and some of you may have heard of Isaac Asimov, he can see that the mass from which the Big Bang derived was originally a few light years in diameter.
Okay, Dick. I have heard of Isaac. He was an amazingly intelligent man who studied many areas. However, after 2 hours of searching the internet, I could not find that quote from Isaac Asimov. I found quote after quote from him on science and religion, but nothing on the Big Bang. Funny that.
That's about 12 trillion miles across. In other words, quite big. But they changed their mind, which is one reason I can't take evolutionists very seriously. They said by 1965 that figure was reduced to 275 million miles. By 1974 to 54,000 miles. By 1983 to a trillionth the diameter proton. And now it's so small you can't even see it. It's called a singularity. You can't measure it. It's so tiny. So it's gone from this thing from 12 trillion miles across to a singularity in the space of about 60 years. So how serious is this?
Aye, laugh all you want. You are a medical doctor, Dickie. Think how many advances have been made in the last 60 years. In Australia, we're so close to curing HIV. 10 years ago, it was a dream. 20, impossibility. 60, not even thought of. So once again, I have to say, so fucking what? If the theory has changed in the last 60 years, well, at least science is open to new ideas. Unlike your crap.
How serious is this? How can we take this thing seriously? So it's all come from this singularity. And just on the laws of natural physics, it's also opposed to the second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics deals with something called entropy, which is a big word, but it just means that everything goes downhill. For example, a pile of bricks, if you threw them out of the back of a lorry or a truck, you would expect them to appear in a sort of jumbled up fashion, not in a nice pile. Would you agree with that? Well, that's because of a thing called entropy. And basically, you can apply that to everything, biological processes and all physical processes in the universe. For example, here's entropy and a pretty young lady called Sue. And then there's Sue when she's 90 years old. She looks different because of entropy. And this is what Sue looks like when she's 3,000 years old. And you notice she doesn't get better, she gets worse. She gets worse. And that's, by the way, if you have a nice hot cup of coffee.
No, Dick. Evolution does not break the second law of thermodynamics, and neither does the Big Bang. Click on the annotation to see how this is perfectly explained by Brett P. Palmer, a YouTube channel that is well worth checking out.
Coffee or tea in front of you, it's cooling down because of entropy. The sun's cooling down, the earth's slowing down. Our metabolic rate is slowing down as we grow older. A high energy system will always decay to a low energy system. But evolutionists say, no, this doesn't happen with the Big Bang. Everything gets better, not worse. They say that low energy systems get better, and order is created out of nothing. It's just opposed to the second law of thermodynamics. Well, there we are. That's what the evolutionists, they assume that when you add energy, they call it the Big Bang, the big explosion, in a closed system, that it's going to add lots and lots of order to the system. But as Yemi just said only 5 minutes ago, if you have an explosion, well, the only explosions that I've ever seen, you don't add order to anything. If you had an explosion in this studio right now, it wouldn't be a better studio now, would it, Yemi? No. It wouldn't.
It would be total bad news.
It would be bad. I mean, this would be a bit of glass and a bit of plastic and a bit of Yemi and a bit of Richard all over the place. And it wouldn't be a better universe, it would be a better studio, it would be a worse one. It's the same with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was worse.
Dick. Where do I begin? The universe is not a closed system like the room would be. Space-time is still expanding, and the universe has got room now to fill out while it still expands. Notice I have yet to say explosion whenever I'm discussing the Big Bang Theory. That's because there was never an explosion. It was an expansion. Slight difference. Let's carry on with this.
And it's all because of this thing called entropy. Right, so where have we got to now?
So now, tell me, do the planets tell us anything about creation, though?
Well, the planets are really, really important because apart from the fact that they're nice and round, like tennis balls, they also violate one more really important law of physics called the conservation of angular momentum, which is a very big word, but it's very simple to understand. So I want to explain it to you. I'm sorry about all these pictures, but you can understand it much better if I explain it to you with pictures. Now let me just explain this conservation of angular momentum. It's better if you look at the picture right now. So there you've got maybe the singularity in the middle, which was originally 12 trillion miles across, and explodes and gives off all the planets. Well, the whole point is that the...
Getting fed up with this, Dick. It expands, not explodes.
Planets are all supposed to be rotating in the same direction, and the little moons around the planets are all supposed to be going to the same direction. Let's make it easy. If you can imagine a children's playground and lots of little kiddies playing on that little merry-go-round, if some guys come along and push it faster and faster, they go fast, and they go even faster, they all start yelling out stop, but eventually they all fly off. And guess what? They all fly off in the same direction. That's what they do. And eventually maybe one of them hit a tree. But I hope you got the point there, is they all fly off in the same direction. Well, the whole point is, but if you look at the...
I notice your diagrams are all pretty old, and as are your quotations, Dick. That last one was 32 years old. The understanding of physics has changed in some areas since then. It's called progress.
Actual universe, we would expect, according to the law of conservation of angular momentum, that all the planets would be moving in the same direction. But guess what? That's not what we see. We see that Venus, Uranus and Pluto go in the opposite direction. They go backwards from each other. And it actually gets worse for the evolutionists. So, excuse me. There are various little moons that go around the planets, and 6 of the 63 moons rotate backwards, and Jupiter, Saturn and Neptune have moons orbiting in both directions. Now that's absolutely impossible according to this law of conservation of angular momentum. So there we are, Yemi.
That is interesting. That's strange, because normally, if we're dealing with the same force that controls the universe, the planet should be swinging in the same direction, not some going in a different direction.
Well, that's right.
So
that's exactly right. So that's the whole point. See, 3 of them, I mean, the moon is spinning, sorry, the sun is spinning like this, and all the planets should be spinning the same way, but 3 of them are going the other way.
Wow.
And then, of course, you've got the moons that go around all these different planets. There are 63 of them, and some have moons going that way, some have moons going that way, and some can't do it, actually, but some of them got moons going both ways. I think God did it on purpose to confirm.
What a heap of bollocks, Dick. The most widely accepted theories about the retrograde rotations of Venus and Uranus state that there was most likely a major collision with a dwarf planet that did not create a moon, like the Earth, but was absorbed with enough force to alter its rotation and provide angular momentum. Also, with the moons that have retrograde rotations, most likely similar problems caused that, plus the gravitational pull of Jupiter caught them as they rotated around the Sun in that direction. That one about the moons is generally a hypothesis I've created after reading a lot of papers on it. Do not take it as fact. Thank fuck I had beer to sustain me.
I'm the evolutionist.
That's right.
I think he did it on purpose.
Now, tell me, are there any biological laws we need to know about?
Yeah, absolutely. There's what's called the law of biogenesis, and the simple way of explaining it is that life cannot spontaneously evolve by chance in the primordial slime. But actually what it says, the law of biogenesis, it says life does not arrive from non-life forms. According to evolution, well, evolutionists say that life arose by chance in the primordial slime roughly about 3 billion years ago. That's what they say.
Finally, we're finally moving away from the Big Bang Theory. Unfortunately, it's on to abiogenesis, or as he called it, the law of biogenesis, which is such a huge piece of creationist pap. Next video, please. I'll see you then.